Welcome to the second section of the first week of the Functional Programming in Erlang MOOC. What we're going to do in this section is get you started writing programs for yourselves. But first of all, what I'm going to do is take you through the general process of writing programs in Erlang. Well, let's have a look. We've got a setup here. We've got the screen running two different programs. Here we've got a shell, and you can see that I've got some Erlang programs in that in the folder that I'm in. And if I invoke Erlang, I've got my Erlang shell there. I've also got an editor running here. What I need is a text editor. It can be any text editor you like. It can't be Microsoft Word, of course, because that's not a text editor. It puts all sorts of junk in your file, which will then trip the Erlang system up. I'm using Emacs here, the Aquamax version for the Mac, but there's any text editor will do. Most editors will have an Erlang mode, and you can see here I have got some sort of syntax highlighting going on here. In fact, I'm also using what's called FlyMake mode that compiles the program in the background, and that's the source of the red line that you see there. Okay, well, let's get started. What have we got in our file so far? Well, first of all, we have a file called first.erl. And in that we have a module declaration that says module first. That's what we see on the first line here. So that's saying dash module, and then the name of the module is first. We have an export statement, export declaration comes next. Let's not worry about that for the moment, but let's just look at adding a definition here. Let's write mult. A function multiply takes two arguments x and y, and what it's going to do is multiply them together. And there you see a definition of the function to multiply. What we have on the first line is the head of the function. You've got the function applied to some arguments, followed by an arrow, and what you see after the arrow is the result of the function. Now that's a very simple case. We'll see that you can have functions with multiple clauses and also with more complicated bodies, but to start with, what we have is left-hand side that says if you apply multiply to x and y, then the result will be x times y. And then we can write a function double, which takes x, and the result of that is to multiply x by 2. And we see there that we've now got two functions, and in fact all our red lines have disappeared because everything has worked out okay there. What I can do now is in my Erlang shell I can compile this. So I say compile first, not m first, but first. And it's saying that first.l function double is undefined. Did I save this? No, I'd forgotten to save it. So what I need to do, so we're getting that error there because the function wasn't defined. Let's remember I can use an up arrow here. That will take me back to my previous command. And now if I compile first, I can see that the compilation has been okay. And I'll get that result back. Now I can ask for values of, so I can say what is double of 8, for example. Oh, and now I'm getting this error. I did this deliberately, though it's something I often do by accident. Can you see what the error message is saying? It's saying undefined shell command double. Remember that shell commands were things like forget and so on. It's reading my double of 8 as being something like a shell command. And that's because I have to invoke the function in a fully qualified form. So I have to say it's in the module first, colon, and its name is double. And then I can ask for that, and I get the result as I'd expect of 16. I can also ask for first of mult of 2 and 3, for example. Let's do that. See what happens there. Now, I get another error. I've got an undefined function, first colon mult. But look, it's defined in my module there. But it's not in the export list. Now let's have a look at what is in that export declaration. We have a list, that's what those square brackets mean, of function names. But the names are not just names on their own, they are names together with an arity. So the arity says how many arguments they have. Now if I save this, if I recompile my file here and then call this again, I can see that that function is now available for use because I've exported it. So what have we seen so far? We've seen some simple function definitions which have this form. We've seen that the module has a name and that the name of the module must correspond to the name of the file in which it lives, and the file extension it should have is a .erl file. And we've seen that for functions to be usable outside the module, so in the shell, or indeed in another module, we have to export them, as we have done there. Now, I just wanted to show you one extension of this, and that is to show you the function that takes the area of a triangle with sides A, B and C. And if you remember, the formula for the area goes something like this. If you set S to be A plus B plus C divided by 2, then the area is the square root of S times S minus A times S minus B times S minus C. Oops, and I need to use a capital C there. And there is my answer. Now let's just save that and let's compile it. And it's saying that square root is undefined because I've made that same mistake again. What I'm using here is something from the math library, so I need to say math colon square root, save that again, and let's compile it again. That compiles okay, but now I'm receiving a warning, and that warning is that the function area 3 is unused. Now what could that be saying? Well, nothing else in the module calls it. That's fair enough, but also it's not actually exported, so it can't be used outside. So we know it certainly isn't used. But if I add the appropriate export and then recompile, I get a perfectly good compilation. So now what I've got is this definition. And what I wanted to point out to you here was that in the definition of area now, we have a sequence of expressions separated by commas. So we set S to be that, and then the result of the function is the final expression in the list. So, in the sequence. So, in general, a function body looks like a whole sequence of expressions. It can be evaluations, often they're assignments, and then at the end we have the result of the function. So that's one of the ways in which we can generalize this from this very simple example that we saw up there, that the right-hand side, the body of a function, is a sequence of expressions, and the result is the final expression in the sequence. Now the earlier expressions may build up subsidiary values, or they may indeed do some communication, something like that, if we're looking at a concurrent program. So there we have it. We've seen a simple example of writing an Erlang module in a text editor, saving it, compiling it in Erlang, and we've seen some of the errors that we get. That we must remember to use a function in a fully qualified form in the shell. We must remember to export a function if we want to use it. And we must remember if we're using a function inside a module, we have to have it in fully qualified form. But there we have the edit, compile, evaluate loop. And if we look back in our, we'll quit Erlang, remember you do that by second Q. If we list the files that we have, you'll see that there's another file called first.beam, which is the compiled form of our first.erl. This is the machine code for the beam, which is the virtual machine on which Erlang runs. So compilation takes an Erlang file and produces a beam file. So you will see those files in your folders, and they're the results of performing the compilation. Okay, so I think that's it. We've seen how this works. We use a shell to run Erlang, and we use an appropriate, whichever text editor you prefer, with an Erlang mode to edit the Erlang programs themselves. So there we have it. Thanks very much.